Amanda Thompson, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you here.
Thanks, Melanie.
You've done so much and learned so much. You have quite a journey from athletic experiences to being a financial advisor. Let's dive in and share your story.
I'm an open book. So, what would you like to know?
Okay, how did the athletic side start?
I've always been really sporty, and in fact, I've done a human movement, which is an applied science degree. So, it's always been a part of my life, and I fell into financial advising just by chance, and absolutely loved it. And ever since, I've been, I can make a lycra analogy with money any day of the week. So to me, they're actually not much different in terms of goal setting and creating habits. And then Ironman triathlon came about because a friend thought it would be really cool to give me a birthday present that was a half Ironman entry. And me being someone who was always up for a challenge, took it. And I have done over 30 half Ironmans since, and had a couple of world championship appearances. So yeah, that's the story of my last 12 years.
Okay, and you told me that you have eased up on doing the Ironman competitions. Do you want to talk about that phase?
Yeah, look, not by choice, unfortunately. I was telling you off air that my three metronomes, or my three most important things in life, are my two children, family, work, which is my own business, and triathlon. And there's this concept that there's only room for two and a half of, out of three of those. So it's always an evolving concept. And just before I was supposed to head across to Taupo for my latest World Championships qualification, I was went out for a run and didn't come home. I landed in a cardiac ward for three weeks just before Christmas last year, and I was diagnosed with blood clots in my lungs, which unfortunately was a physical legacy of a severe domestic violence attack I'd had a year earlier. So eased up on the triathlon is a very nice way of putting in my eyes that, something was taken from me without choice, and having to deal with that is a brand new experience for me, but one that I'm committed to, and starting to share my story, like talking to you today about how everything joins together, and how, that endurance mindset still has to stay with me through this next chapter.
It really does. I would like to learn, how did you overcome that domestic experience?
I'm still healing, Melanie. I think that I really spiraled emotionally after it. I I had court appearances because he was charged by the police. There was a whole host of things in that year. I lost my confidence completely. I lost work for a period of time because I was just depleted. I was diagnosed with acute PTSD as a result of the attack. And so when I landed in hospital a year later, as much as I had this big cry of what had happened and the realization that his violence was still living inside me, I woke up the next day and just went, I'm not letting you run my story anymore. You are not the author of my story. I am. And so that was my real step to healing, was starting to say, you no longer have a name. As much as, yes, you're going to pop up in my dreams and my life without things, and there'll be triggers that go on that are related to you. It's time for me to refine myself, refine my energy, refine my confidence, and write my next chapter. And so since the start of this year, so since probably 2025, I've taken, put one foot in front of the other quite slowly as it compared to training for triathlon. And a part of that is sharing the story, because I believe that we learn so much from stories. And I love what I do for work, and I needed to get back to that, but I needed to get back to it as the person I wanted to be doing work as well. And even that's evolved in the way I plan. So I think out of adversity, I found purpose, which, is good in a way. And no one wants to have to go through adversity, but it's how you utilize that, or where you gain strength from it.
Yes, I think you have a really important wisdom to share, because I have seen in recent months and years, I have understood more that women from any walk of life can end up in a situation like that. And it doesn't matter how successful people might look, it doesn't matter how independent we might feel. We can end up losing our independence or our sense of self or our confidence. And it sounds like you are trying to reshape who you are after everything. So I hope everybody can learn from firstly how you are reshaping your identity after this trauma, but also how you grow and maintain your financial independence because you'd have some extra wisdom about that as a financial advisor.
Absolutely. And I think for me, I mean, this is a part of that what I say really rough year. And I was saying just the other day, I literally lost a year of my life. It's a bit like COVID all over again in that we just, I couldn't I was out of action for a year, and a lot of that was guilt and shame. I pride myself on helping women through these battles themselves, and I actually do a lot of work with women who have been in similar situations, coercive relationships and things like that. And I was so ashamed that I had found myself in that. But then, so it takes time to unpack that and realize that that is the work of someone else as well. And when you're a positive person, often though those things can happen. And now I do share my story, like you said, if it can happen to me, it can happen to anyone. I was with it. Luck's not the right word. It's unfortunately I've realized that I do practice what I preach, and I had this buffer of money, and I did, have that financial knowledge to be able to stand on my own 2 feet. And well, I don't know whether standing on my own 2 feet is the right word, but I had a buffer that, you know, did protect my daughter and I financially when all this occurred. But it's financial advice. We all learn from the same textbook. And I think for me, one of the differences is that the lived experience and how I bring that lived experience into how I connect with my clients as well, male or female. I really believe that that connection piece is missing by a lot of people in those type of industries.
It has been. I completely agree that although we need to understand the concepts of an industry, and it could be from a textbook or from online, wherever we learn, beyond that, the lived experience helps you to understand the everyday practical reality of implementing a lot of the concepts that we know are needed.
Especially around money, Melanie, because if you think about it, money is so emotive, and people think of it as this material thing, which it is. Like if you go and get $100 bill, that's a material thing. But money as the concept is so emotive. Every single thought we have with money is attached to emotion or feeling. And so how can textbook advice necessarily be the same for everyone, because the feelings attached to money are different to everyone as well?
Absolutely. I'm wondering what sorts of feelings about money you have seen. It's almost cliched these days to hear that people don't think they deserve to have as much money. And I want to ask you for a response about the mindset that maybe other people shared, but that I had grew up religious and surrounded by volunteers. And it was all about being selfless, being generous, don't be greedy, things like that. And there were all of these values that tell us you shouldn't want anything. And then you end up with nothing and you can't survive. Have you seen people with that sort of mindset?
Absolutely. I think that, there's a part of my industry is money coaches, and a lot of them do work around money mindset. So I'm not a qualified money coach, but I really believe in this concept because we have to travel backwards to understand who we are. And your story is so common in lots of different ways. If you've got, I've had people that have had gambling parents, things like that. So they come from this scarcity mindset, and trying to switch that to an abundance mindset can be hard for people because we're taught to be selfless. But
Yes.
yeah, especially women, and then one step further, especially mothers. And so you've really got to work through that, is saying that we do want things as mothers. We want security for ourselves. We want to be able to provide for our children. So it's about switching, as opposed to thinking about money, as I said, money's the tool to get us what we want, and what we want is generally a feeling. And so if you think of the feeling that you're chasing first and then put money to it, sometimes with that understanding, you can break past some of those mindsets that you were taught because, you didn't really talk about money either back then. So it wasn't a thing you were taught about. It was just this concept of giving and, being, and receiving so politely or giving back and things like that. And I think you can do everything. It's just that anyone deserves to achieve the feeling they're seeking. Anyone.
Absolutely. That's true. So what so sorry. So what does your work involve these days then? Which part of the process, which step do you normally guide? And I'm wondering, I'll ask later, what advice do you have for people who are starting from scratch and also those who are maybe looking to grow and get more flexibility? But what do you do?
So I, s- I mean, my passion's actually small business. Believe it or not, I love helping small business people really grow and scale, and make sure their legacy financially is secure. But I think like attract like as well. So I help a lot of women, in particular, going through divorces or things like that, come to terms with what's life look like after? What's the next chapter look like? And starting to build that confidence. So a lot of that, the way I do that is I'd say that knowledge brings clarity and clarity brings confidence. And so I do a lot of financial advice with educated reasoning. And so I make my clients be a part of that process. And then they've got that ownership as opposed to just handing across a document and saying, you need to do this. I really involve them in the decision making. I'm still a qualified financial advisor. And so generally we talk about investments, insurance, superannuation, cash flow, debt, all of those things, but it's about rounding it out. And I think the word holistic gets used too much, but it is the perfect concept. I really do provide that holistic advice, but with connection. And I really believe in that connection. So if I take on a client, I want them long term. It doesn't mean that they have to pay me all the time. It's about having that relationship and someone they trust and feel comfortable with to fall back on for the questions, but that relationship lasts through the ages.
Yes, the word holistic was almost kidnapped by the crystalline chakra scene, as great as that may be for other spaces. But the word holistic is very useful when we can look at the entire big picture of someone's life. So I'm wondering if that's what you mean by that, where just looking at the numbers, there's normally a story behind the numbers.
Absolutely. And it's you're right. So holistic to me is so I do a lot of workshops for financial wellness. If you can convince an organization that finance is a part of a personal wellness package, then it should be. So wealth, health, it all goes together. The biggest thing at the moment is personal development. Be kind to yourself. We hear that every second day. Be kind to yourself. Well, isn't getting financial literacy and confident with money and your own finances a part of being kind to yourself? It means treading gently, but putting your hand up and saying, no, I want more. I want to learn more. I want to understand this. I want the confidence, because then you've got your self-worth. You've got all of those things. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, and as I said, for me, that holistic concept is it's still attached to a feeling.
It is. It is. Finance, I think you might be one of the few, possibly the first on my show, really focusing on finance. And the reason I'm so excited for this is exactly what you said, that it is a part of looking after yourself. And even having very basic finances, there's a point where it means that someone can afford the gap payments or the difference in costs of healthcare, of therapies, even after going through a trauma like yours or something different, having the extra resources to recover from that, but also having the right finances to look after what we eat and whether we work out in groups that might cost a bit. It's to some extent, although there are free options for a lot of the types of wellness, there will be a point where anyone will need to use finance to even just sort out help?
I use the example quite often of I get people to set goals, as I was saying to you off air, but they're always personal goals. So nothing money related. And so, but this client owned her own business and her goal was simply two kids, two special needs children. So she wanted to make sure the connection with her husband remained. So her goal was as simple as I'd like to go on a date night every fortnight with my husband. So I do help, we have to have specific goals. And as easy as that sounds, that's it. There's money and money need, because to have a date night with her husband meant she needed to get the children minded with no family around. So there's a cost involved in that, let alone what you want to actually do on that date night. And so we work through, well, how do we use what we've got and money is the tool to provide you with that goal. And so when she went on, started going on date nights, it was really cool. We just, and then we went on to the next goal. So there's some of the things that I do in that sense. But just, small steps. Small steps for everyone. Some people want to jump off the ledge, and I don't think you necessarily need to just jump off the ledge either. Because you're not necessarily getting the education when you just dive straight in.
What sorts of things do people want to dive into a bit too quickly?
Oh, home loans, investment properties, because we live in Australia and bricks and mortar is what we've been taught is the be all and end all. Some people just want you to tell them what to do, and that's diving in as well. I just need to invest, or can you, so that's more what I mean when I say diving in, is come with the blinkers on and what they want, but it's all money related. I want to pay down debt. I want to save this. I want to, no, back. What do you want? What do you want to feel?
Yes, what do you want to feel? But also, how willing are you to understand things? And I have been following some entrepreneurs overseas who say, do the thing that you understand and know. And I appreciate that. But when when we have less of an understanding of the very basic personal finance, let me know if you agree that we need to understand the essentials of why we're doing what we're doing at least. Because do you think there's too much of a quick fix? And do people almost, if they just dive in with whatever you tell them without understanding it, do they sometimes even slip into old habits because they're just doing what they're told?
And this is where I say I bring the sport analogies in. If you want to run a marathon, and you go on your first training run and run a marathon, you'll pull up so sore, you've probably injured yourself, it'll be absolute hell. You won't want to do it again. And so you may not ever make it. Whereas if you start small and enjoy the wins along the way, I did my fastest K, or I've hit 5K, 10K, you're actually developing and committing to the habits that you need to sustain it as well. But there's no difference with money. So if you do what I tell you to do without one understanding, you're not going to be truly committed to it, because you're going to question. You're going to question your decisions. And when we question, we'll tend to err on the side of caution and won't commit to what we have put in place either. It's easier to just go, no, this doesn't feel right. Whereas if you do it slowly and create the habits and sustain it, then you're more likely to reach that goal. And when you reach that goal, it's an awesome feeling. It's like crossing the line in a triathlon. And then you want to sign up for the next one straight away.
Yes. I'm keen to ask a question about small businesses or businesses that are trying to grow, because one issue that I've heard about online and offline is people who create something that's going smoothly, but there's no real option for them to take a break, or they are irreplaceable. And it could be because some people don't know how to replace themselves, or they think they can't afford it. And I'm not referring to any one person in particular, but I'm wondering about that now, especially I'm in early stages. Other people could be in early stages. I'm curious, is that something you want people to think about early on when they are setting up a small business? How can you make it not completely depend on you to the point where you could become burnt out?
I think that all businesses when they start out, no matter where, what, or if you haven't got one, that you need a business plan. And it can be a one or two. It doesn't need to be what we think are these massive business plans. That's the first thing. Where do you want this business to go? What are your goals with this business? Why did you start the business? What are going to be, good old fashioned SWOT analysis? What are you going to be your strengths, your weaknesses? As you said, weaknesses could be that I can't give, can't delegate. What are the threats and what are the opportunities? And the threats are, how am I going to take time off? All of those things, but also cash flow. Everyone does budgets. A cash flow forecast should be in place to see how you're going to pay yourself as well. So this is the problem with a lot of small businesses. They don't factor in a salary for themselves. They just take and hope that it grows and things like that. Whereas if you can do a cash flow forecast, you can say, well, how much am I going to get salary? And then you're planning. So I need holidays. So what's that cash flow? So if you are a one-person show and you may shut down. So I'm shutting down over January. I need a break. Yeah. So it means no income's coming into my business in January. So I've got to make sure I've got enough to get me through January into February. That's the only way you can do that is with cash flow forecasts. You can't close your eyes, rub a magic lamp and say, I hope January is going to be okay. So the other thing about small businesses is we go into it and we think we've got to be perfect. And so many people think the finances will come. Or I'm not great at that. So I'm going to focus. We hear so many things in small business too. Do what you're good at.
Yes.
Concentrate on what you're good at. Well, you've got to be kind of good at finances, or you've got to have enough money to outsource some help to do that. So that's the traps that people fall into quite quickly with small business.
Yes. You need to plan for the quiet times. Curious. Have you worked with anyone who's very much the face of their business and then trying to figure out, okay, what's that going to look like a few decades from now?
I do it every day. That's me. It's
That's
only
you.
one reminder. I will. It's highly unlikely I will ever hire another financial advisor because I'm yet to find one exactly like me. So I am the face of my business. As much as I have help around me, they are not me in terms of with the clients. So have I come across people all the time? But all the time I'm looking in the mirror when I have my team meeting with myself. Dealing with that. And it's about what your long-term goals are. As much as I've got a potentially saleable business, it's not as saleable as someone who runs purely on transactions. So I've got to make sure my business is providing for my future with that less of a goal in place that I'm going to sell my business for big dollars when I'm ready to.
Right. So are you saying that not everybody needs to have the goal of being scalable for a big
No,
sale one
no.
day?
So a lot of people, so if you are going to sell, if that's not a part of your plan, then obviously your business needs to provide you with something that you're putting away for your retirement or your future. So there's lots of different avenues. Again, it comes down to you. The only person that understands your business is you. And so you've got to have the right people around you. Is that my job is to support you get what you want and help you along the way. It's not for me to tell you what you should want.
Sure. What are the basic habits? Let's go back to personal everyday habits. Now, everybody will have an opinion on those, but I'm so curious. We had an era, probably a decade ago, maybe less, when everybody talked about avocado toast like it was a financial, political statement.
And remember, it was $13. Tell me where you can find avocado smash now for $13. So back then, they were bitching about $13 avocado on toast.
Now it's $10 or $20 more than that.
Yeah. The habits. So the habits for me are, I'm known for saying budget's a dirty word. I don't like budget. It says a lot about me is I don't like people telling me what to do. And I find budgets are quite restrictive and dictating. So I use the word spending plan. And it's, again, I err on always positive, Melanie. So for me, a spending plan is trying to create that surplus, and how do you, so I think that switches you on in a positive way, whereas budgets are just like, spending plan gives you choice. So I think one of the basic things we can do is well, there's lots of them. So, but it's mindful spending. So really thinking about what you're spending money on. And, again, it comes down to what's your goal and that why do you really want to save money and understanding that. And you're more likely to be shopping or out at breakfast, for example, and say, do I really need to go to breakfast? If we bring the avocado toast into it, do I really need to go for breakfast today? What am I sacrificing if I do go out for breakfast today? How am I sacrificing time to get to the goal that I want? That's one thing. And I think that's one way people just don't understand is that, again, it's about goal setting and understanding that your goal is not what your next door neighbor's goal is, or it's not what the mother's group goals are. It's your personal goal. It's the only way you'll start to do mindful spending. My second thing is in the era of online shopping, walk away. Walk away from that instant gratification, put it in a virtual shopping cart, come back 24 hours later and go, do I really want that? And the third thing for anyone is start small. Most people will have superannuation. So it's your money whether you like it or not. So pay a bit of attention to it. Go and have a look at where it's invested, what your fees are. Is there insurance attached? What's my legacy? In other words, who's the beneficiary of my super? Does my super fund offer a free financial planning call? Most of them do. So, start small. Pay attention to something that is yours. Your superannuation you own. You may not be able to touch it, but it's still yours.
It is yours. You can get a financial advice call through Super.
Most of the industry super funds will have a general advice line, and they'll help you work out what investments or talk you through the beneficiary, or what would it be if your salary sacrificed a certain amount into super. A lot of them have calculators on their online as well. So, that's in essence, you're paying for that by paying for the fees of your super fund. So utilize it. So you don't necessarily need to go out and enlist a financial planner straight away. I'm not telling anyone to do that. If anything, my only little plug is I have a book called Financially Fit Women that men could read as well. And for $40, you can get the whole range of basic ideas on how to start working through things. But your other option is that free option. If you're in an industry super fund, have a look if they've got those opportunities for you.
And definitely send a link to the book and I can share that with the audience for sure. Are there any other resources that everybody can access, at least in Australia, that we should be using more?
Look, I mean, the one that people don't know about is the financial counselling helpline. So we have financial counsellors, which is often referred to it, as debt counsellors as well. If you are on Centrelink, if you're on any type of pension, you actually are eligible for free help. So people who are in really dire straits can access that through the financial counsellors helpline. The Money Smart website is one of the best resources that we have. So that's moneysmart.gov.au. That's an amazing resource. That's all I can think of off the top of my head.
Do you have any ideas on even categories, anything that someone could use online if they're even in another country? Because we get people looking at the podcast from anywhere.
Well, you can get onto the Money Smart website.
And talking about retirement, the thing that I realized having seen, I'll comment on the grandparent that passed away a few years ago. I think people should expect the worst, but also the best as well. I mean, people can get really sick. I watched someone being sick for years on end and needing a lot of expensive treatment and having needs for the right environment, things like that. And we don't know how old we're going to be when we retire. I don't know how your clients or your community would even plan for what age they're going to retire.
And there's laws, isn't there, about when you can access your super, when you can access the age pension. But who says you can't retire earlier than that if you want to and you have the capacity to? And so, again, even retirement, as much as the governments will spruik how much an average person needs in retirement, I argue that your retirement is going to be completely different than anyone else's because, I sit there For example, how often would you see someone the same age with exactly the same circumstances? You know, 4 grandchildren, the exact same ages, boy, girl, different school, you know. So even those things, or golf, you know, golf, triathlon, whatever it is that you want to do, painting, ceramics, whatever a retirement looks for you, even charity work. So who is exactly the same exactly the same in retirement? So how can anyone tell you other than getting some personalized advice for it?
For sure. I'm curious about how you even define retirement because some people identify as being retired but still work part time or casually. Is that still within your definition of retirement?
I think so. It's different for everyone, isn't it? So retirement for me would be, I can't see me ever retiring from work, you know, or speaking. You know, I hope retirement looks like traveling the world speaking for me. I think retirement, you know, generally is we stop full time work and we've got choice on what we do next. You know, so if choice is to go, I've retired and I'm going to work a bit, choice is I'm going to go and volunteer. And that's where I see retirement. It's probably one of the words that you would not go to the dictionary to find the definition of.
Definitely, definitely. And we're seeing people finding flexibility at all sorts of ages now, especially this is the perfect detour because women, mothers who maybe sacrificed a few years and then need to figure out what they're going to do next, they tend to look for a bit more flexibility. So I'm curious, what have you seen that works for different people? I know we're all different, but what have you seen that works for that sort of flexibility?
Look, I think more and more women are starting businesses from home to get that. Work from home in Australia has been quite good for that as well. So more women are able to go back into the workforce with that work from home concept. You know, but the other interesting thing is if you go back at, you know, 15, 20 years, the mother could, or the father, you were living off one wage. The cost of living is so great now and mortgages that we take on are so big now that often you need 2 wages. And so it all comes into cash flow, doesn't it? Again, we come back and we full circle to cash flow. Um, how much money's coming in? How much money's going out? What can you do? How do you do it? What do you change if you do want that lifestyle or flexibility around what you do? It is a very general concept because again, it depends on who earns what and how many hours and what the opportunities are to work from home. But you know, the biggest rise of small work from home businesses is females for that very reason, to bring in an income while they are staying at home.
Work from home. If someone is starting a business from scratch, are there any very essential do's and don'ts there?
Cash flow, cash flow, cash flow.
Okay.
You know, I see people make the mistake, and I will call it the mistake, is starting their own business. Um, if they've got capital, it's great, but they put it into, well, they get sold courses galore, you know, courses galore, online advertising, online marketing, all of these things. Try and take that out of your equation to start with and really figure out what your value proposition is or what is it that you're selling, and work through, well, how, you know, scale in the right way. You know, a reward could be, my business is going so well now I'm ready to engage in some assistance with marketing or social media, or professional development, you know, paid ads, whatever it is. I mean, sometimes some things need paid ads, but you've got to factor it into your cash flow. So cash flow, cash flow, cash flow, and the bank balance. The two big numbers you need to know: your bank balance and your cash flow.
For sure. So part of looking up to yourself is to look at the numbers,
hmm Yeah, look at the numbers and understand them. Take the time to absorb and understand why they look the way they do.
understand why. Okay. So then once that's all going smoothly, have you got any tips for scaling a bit? I know that not everybody wants to scale to these days it seems like 1,000,000 is the new normal and 1,000,000,000 is the new aspiration. That's
Yeah,
the impression I'm
what
getting.
though? A million turnover, a million profit, you know, like this is the thing. You know, what numbers mean what to who? You know, a million turnover and you've worked 60 hours a week, a million turnover and you've worked 20 hours a week. See what these fin influencers and all of these people promising the world. They throw numbers out and it excites us, except stop and look at your own thing and what time. And, the basic of things that you could do is, if I'm going, say you want to work 20 hours a week, if I worked for someone 20 hours a week, what would I get paid? And whatever that is, well, okay, if I'm going to start my own business and work 20 hours a week, what does my business need to make so that I'm getting what I would get if I'm working for someone else for the same thing? So there's simple tools like that you can do as well. Scaling, when you're up built, I think, again, you've got to revisit your business plan. You've got to redo your business plan. You've always got to go in aware. That's the thing, isn't it? Like, just go in aware so that, again, you're confident with the decisions you're making. Get the
So
support. If you're ready to scale, you should have enough money to get the support in the right areas you need as well. The other thing about scaling, without going too deep into numbers, is what will it take to scale? What area are you going to scale? Is it going to take more energy with less profit to scale? What area is the best place to scale in? Who are your clients? Are you going to get new clients to scale? Are you going to upsell to current clients? Are you going to increase? There's lots of ways to scale. So how are you going to scale?
yes, that's a question. Would you go from offline to online or vice versa? Would you go from one location to more locations? So it's more complicated than
Well, of
just
course.
a vague ideal. More, so there are costs in scaling.
Yeah, absolutely. There are costs in scaling. So what's the trade-off? And is it really, what does that mean? And again, the physical and mental exertion of a business owner to do that as well. So, more than scaling, think sustainable. What's a sustainable business? How will I keep going, and can I do this? And if I do this, is that sustainable, both mentally, physically and financially?
Calling it sustainable is so significant to me because one second. Calling it sustainable is significant to me because I was looking at other forms of sustainability a while ago. And what I learned from the environmental sustainability people is that whatever habit you are doing in your life, can you actually keep it going beyond the short term? And that translates so much to financial sustainability and also your health. So it sounds like part of what you were saying is, are we going to be able to look after ourselves in the new amount of success and type of success that we're pursuing?
Absolutely. If you want a case study on scaling, you should go and listen to Christina Carlson's story. Kiki K. She speaks quite openly about how she was opening business. She was opening physical stores everywhere and X amount of staff, and on the outset, it's huge. But with that came costs, more costs. Then when it fell down hard.
What happened?
So she had to she went into receivership because of COVID and because of the rent of the physical stores and things like that. She talks quite openly about it. So if you ever get the chance to see Christina Carlson live or hear her story, it's quite amazing how honest she is about what scaling eventuated, what eventuated from scaling for her.
That's definitely worth checking out. So we need to consider how we are going to create a safety net for ourselves and also just preventing burnout. In the earliest episodes of my podcast, I heard from multiple former and current small business owners who became so burned out, it was affecting their physical health. And this seems to keep happening. And in one sentence, my experience was that I was just giving for nothing to the point where I was sick every other week.
Yeah.
That
And it's a common thing.
it's common.
Yeah, very, very common.
It's so common. So it sounds like the essentials for what we need to do. I adore how this really has intertwined with wellness so much. It's not simply numbers. And actually, this is probably something we can both agree on. Numbers are manifested in a tangible, visible, everyday life. It's not just ink on a page or digits on a screen. It's how you're actually living your life.
Yeah, I agree. And this is where that I think people fall short in that they don't align money to these conversations or finance to these thoughts and conversations. We forget that it is a part of, we often see money and finances as standalone, but it isn't. It is encapsulated in everything we do.
Appreciate that so much. Frankly, it was the last thing that I was thinking of. I just wanted to make sure I was eating the right things and whatnot. But then other things just fall short and it will affect your whole life if you're not prioritizing it. We all need to think about this, whether we have a business or our own home or everything or nothing. And I saw a little clip from Eleanor Cardone who said that wealth is wellness and wellness is wealth. And I'm now starting to believe that because the same essential message is coming from you as well.
Absolutely. I mean, financial stress is huge. Yeah. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, do you really think that is doing your health any good? Because you're worried, you're stressed, Um, again, I bring that triathlon mindset, that endurance mindset. It's the positive endorphins, it's the stress hormones, it's all of these things. Money's no different than sport, and sport's a physical thing we do to our body, but so stressing about money.
Absolutely. I like to wind up these podcast conversations with three nearly universal pieces of wisdom that everybody should follow. So, to look after ourselves, again, whether we have everything or nothing or something in between, we all need to look after ourselves. So, what are three things that we can all do to keep ourselves financially sustainable?
First and foremost, go and look at your super. Go and look at your superannuation. Second is seek help. Don't be embarrassed to ask for help. And three, just like any triathlon, just take a small step forward. It could be the biggest step of your life.
Amanda, thank you so much for all the wisdom.
Thanks for having me.
It's been great and a great lesson. I've learned a lot.